You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign our guests a year and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. Today, we are joined by Fab and Chris of the band Talk Show Host. They just released their full-length album, Mid-Century Modern, on Wiretap Records and Disconnect in the UK and Europe. Really fun, catchy pop punk. I guess you'd call it pop punk. Catchy. They call it indie punk, I guess. So we'll use indie punk as their descriptor. But really fun, energy punk music. Really good, really great record. Came out last summer. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the year 1999, the compilation album, Short Music for Short People, which we'll get into what all that entails, but this is a legendary Fat Wreck Chords compilation. Yeah, this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, we went a little long. I mean, it makes sense. You know, there's a lot to talk about on this compilation, so we definitely talk about each song longer than the songs are. So, yeah, it's really, really, really fun conversation that hopefully you'll all enjoy. Speaking of 1999, if you head over to our Patreon, that's patreon.com/punklotopod, we have done a starting 5 on the year 1999, where Dylan and I each choose 5 records to talk about from the year. I think we did a pretty good job of balancing out the type of releases we selected for that. If you haven't yet, you can head over to punklotopod.substack.com and check out my top 200 albums of 2021. I know it's 2022 and everybody's tired of thinking about 2021 records, but I put the time in, damn it.
Got to get that credit.
And then we are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at punklotopod. Email address is punklotopod@gmail.com. And we have voicemails, 202-688-PUNK. We actually received a voicemail that was not related to our best of stuff that I want to address on the show at some point. So Dylan and I will have to make some time for it, but we will get to it, I promise. But that's it, and I hope you enjoy this really fun conversation. If you tell them that it's fun, they have to enjoy it.
It's good.
Just having fun, stop asking me questions.
right, so we are here with Chris and Fab of the band Talk Show Host. Fellas, please say who is who so the audience can tell who's speaking at the moment.
I am Chris. I am not the French one.
I'm Fab. I'm not the French one.
One of us is lying.
Exactly.
One of us is telling the truth.
Surprise.
It's up to you to decide.
There's a game within the podcast. Who's the French guy? Who's the guy who cannot pronounce correctly his band?
How do you say it?
I'm from Talk Show Host.
Talk show host. Talk show host.
Yeah, that's me.
Who needs an H? Too many.
The British don't use it
H's.
either.
No.
S's, H's, S's, like nightmare. Like
And I mean,
hippopotamus.
While we're at it, why is that L even in there in talk? Like, that's kind of useless too. Let's get rid of that.
Yeah, it's true.
Efficiency.
Yeah, I'm going to write a letter to the Canadian corp. Yeah, get rid of the L. Get rid of
Spoiler alert.
H's.
Spoiler alert. He's the French one.
Ah.
Give it away. Sorry.
Oh, I thought it was Dylan. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He wasn't talking.
I became French. I don't know if that,
Congratulations.
After 160 episodes.
Became French.
yeah, it was those Pink Panther movies I watched over the Christmas break.
Pardon me, monsieur. Do you have a licence for that monkey?
You can call me Cluzo for the rest of the podcast.
When he says Minky.
I love that even the joke in those movies was that he doesn't pronounce things the way French people actually do.
Genius.
Yeah, which is a nightmare for me.
It's like your cultural icon, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't have many like. I mean, in pop culture,
Jerry Lewis.
But that's the thing. It's really funny because that's the one that people say all the time in Northern America. But my mom barely knew him. Like, so it's like that generation. It's probably more like late 60s, 70s. But like when I grew up, nobody knew who he was.
Right. I don't know where that even came from, really.
I don't know. He probably have like a sold out show in Paris in 72 or in 63. And,
Yeah.
at the time it was like, oh, he's in Paris. And
Yeah.
instead, there was no internet, no verify what it is. It's like, oh, yeah, sure.
It's the what is it? David Hasselhoff. Germans love David Hasselhoff. Like,
Yeah. You know what? You probably have in the 80s that, top the charts or something for like a week, and then it's a thing. Or there's always rerun. Because that's the thing, when you go in Europe, like if you go to an hotel, turn on the TV that you have, you're going to see a rerun of an old American TV show. And for things like, oh, French love the Love Boat, and Germans like Knight Rider.
yeah. And it's
Spain
just
is Chips, whatever.
And it's just Americans on vacation in these other countries when they're just turning on the TV.
Yeah, and then they go back. Guess what? David Hasselhoff. All right, let's stop with people with H's in their name because it's gonna be a nightmare for me.
Asshole off.
Yes.
David ass all off is how.
Okay. So, Fab, I think
Yes.
you and I have interacted a lot on Twitter
Yes.
over the last probably year or so, maybe. I feel like it's either like you commenting on something similar and something that I commented like a Scott Hicks post or like a Steve Doesn't post, and we all just kind of, oh yeah, you're actually wearing the shirt. So okay, we'll
I'm
talk about that.
representing.
Yeah, your record release Twins,
Yes.
Totally Slow released
Yes.
Casual Drag the same day that you released
Yes.
your full length.
Copycats. I try to be cool. Copy us.
He was on this podcast too, so technically you're copying him now. So
Oh
Good
no!
point.
Damn it! Karma kicked really fast.
and in that episode,
To balance things out, we'll have to try to make sure to see you guys
first.
play a show before we see Totally Slow.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
We'll buy flights,
You know what? We might.
plan out like a 2-week vacation.
We isolated. Meanwhile, he's in the same state I am, and I've yet to see his band play.
Yeah.
We think.
We
No,
think.
but that also, yeah, and we try to always do stuff with them, but again, COVID put everything in question mark and being like, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
let's see how things goes. But yeah, like that's it's kind of the thing that happened last year-ish, where we start being a little bit more active, I guess, on Twitter, like either the band, that's Chris, or myself with my own, trying to interact more with people, with bands, and trying to be a little less isolated than we are, like alone in Toronto. And we do music. I hope people will find it and starting like, hey, yeah, you do cool music. We do cool music too. Let's have some fun. And it's kind of how everything started, and it was like super fun. Like, yeah, and Totally Slow was exactly that. Like, I've become like internet friends. Same with Cluttered from Halifax, and we played shows with them, so that was cool. But it's kind of easier when in the same country.
Yeah.
Than Totally Slow. But yeah,
Funny
the
though,
fun of social
we've got
media.
more friends. We got more friends on the internet than we do in our hometown. That's for sure.
Yeah, which is weird.
I think I relate to that too.
But there's an interview Chris did a couple of years ago with Punk News where we were talking about that, the weight on social media for bands, especially bands like us. Like, we don't really have fans or it's, so you have to create content. You have to, where it's weird because you don't really have fans. So why are you doing that? But you still have to do it because, it's one at a time. And I tweeted something about that a couple of days ago, where I always the impression like we push the band, and who cares? But I realized that each time I post something about the band, one new person gonna listen to the band, and I get like feedback like, oh yeah, I get some. I didn't know you released an album. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I only talked about that for the past, and yeah, and they say, yeah, no, that's great, and for the album. So yeah, social media, and like, look, doing the podcast.
Right. Yeah. It is funny. Like, I've mentioned before on here that like I've worked with someone for years now, and we've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now, and they were like, "You have a podcast? What's it about?" I was like, "Well, I've only worked with you for the entire time I've done it." So
yeah, but that's weird. That's weird. It's
yeah, it is. Like some of our best friends that we've made doing this show, they're like Oklahoma, they're LA, which Dylan wasn't living in LA at the time, but just all over the place, really, Boston, Baltimore, and places like that. So yeah, I guess it's because wherever you live, you're not necessarily going to find as many people with the same like tastes or similar interests in person, but you can find those people online. So it makes it super interesting. It just means that now whenever you go to another city, whenever that's allowed again, you have a place to, or somebody to see and hang out with. So
it's definitely the first year where we felt less like a local band.
Mm-hmm.
Like people everywhere suddenly listening to our record, and we're like sending them to Germany and Italy and all throughout the States, where it's been kind of a struggle to get people to listen to us before. Once we started interacting with people outside our little bubble, and I mean, let's be honest, nobody in Toronto has given a shit for 5 years anyway, so it's not like it was that difficult to increase exponentially once we cast our net a little bit wider. But yeah, it's like, okay, we're not just a local band now.
Yeah. I mean, it also helps that, like, I'd say the only good thing that's come out of this pandemic is, at least in this type of community that we're in, is the way that everyone online is kind of connecting more in a way that they'd never connected before. So like, it's a benefit. I think people were discovering music more in the last 2 years that they might have missed because they weren't a local band coming through their area, or just a touring band coming through your town. So it's a benefit, I guess, of being forced indoors.
I saw a lot of bands talking about other bands. Over the last few years, that's been something that I've seen grow on social media and Twitter, especially. And it I think it just took the people having to like, well, I don't have anything, I don't have shows to promote, I don't have, so I'm on the internet kind of like trying to keep my band alive. And there's all these other people who are on the internet doing the same thing. So like, just kind of like, hey, I really like what they're doing. This is a cool band. So like, I just saw bands being like, it's Bandcamp Friday. Here's 6 bands you should go buy stuff from, So that's been really something that's really cool to see. I really hope that that's something that continues to be a part of like the punk scene at large, because for a while there, it was definitely like, it was definitely, everything was very curated and managed, and like, the social media was seen as like an extension of like the marketing and the PR instead of being kind of just like, we're just normal people in bands that like music.
Yeah, I think also the Scat Twitter gave a lot of on that because it was a small scene. They didn't have any mainstream. Nobody really cares. So they really hang tight all together. And then when the lights start coming to these bands, they were all friends. They're all on the same label, the same thing. And like they have all this positivity they always have because that's the only thing they have. They couldn't be competitive with each other because there was nothing to compete for because they were like the butt of all the jokes. And now they have a strong scene. And if you compare kind of us, like formerly scat punk type of scene versus the ska scene, you can see that the positivity and the progress and like the political things that like is very good in their scene, and in ours is still. But things gonna change. I think like so people have less time now. To be negative, I guess. They probably let that on. I think that in the last year everything's been so divisive and people been yelling all the time on Facebook when they arrive on Twitter. Now maybe they tends to be a little more positive. I don't know.
It could be. I like that you brought up that ska kind of has. Yeah, they have a closer knit community than probably punk in general right now because they were forced to kind of be like keep it together. Have either of you noticed that the punk, like, for lack of a better term, sound has really like taken, I don't know, like a backseat, or just it's not as prevalent as it once was?
To me, I feel like everything has splintered. So like everything is all niches now. Like there's emo made a big comeback, and then there's ska, and then there's like this weird resurgence of mall punk, and like My Chemical Romance is suddenly, for one subset, is like the greatest band that ever lived. And so they're all focused on doing those records, and it's like there's not so much convergence anymore. But something like the skate punk scene, which I had kind of withdrew from a little while ago, they're still going strong. It's just so much smaller now. Like there's a hardcore group of them still keeping those mid to late 90s bands alive. A lot of the bands on Short Music are still going strong and putting out new records and stuff. So I think the sound is still there, but it's just it's splintered. It's moved off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In different directions. Yeah.
Hardcore's probably been the one genre that kind of like has stayed as consistent as it has in the last like 15. Metalcore took like a dominance in that scene during the early 2000s, but then hardcore kind of came. Deathwish hardcore, and then like all of those offshoots. So hardcore is kind of the one that's been like most consistent. But you're right. Yeah, it's like much smaller groups now than it was before.
But that's usually that. Like the more niche are the core fan you have, but then you never go bigger than that. So it's like the 1,000, 2,000 record sale, or people who you're going to go play shows and going to be like 100 people at each show, and it's never going to be bigger than that. And and skate punk, it's kind of like that. But also with the internet and Discord and everything, you can, what? I like polka punk from south of France. I can find tons of bands. I can find like groups and Discord server that talking about that, and I'm gonna have my little group. There's no, oh, I like this sound, what it is. And it was like Blink 182 on a I don't know, shampoo commercial, and it's like, what's that sound? And you don't have that anymore for at least our type of music. So it gives a sense of like, oh yeah, where it is. Also, I think punk never had like a super cool factor. Like it doesn't have like the fun or dancing part of ska that can to people. It doesn't have the emo parts that emo have, or the little twingly guitar for people who really like guitars and be like, oh, that's fun. It's not like dumb power chords. So there's nothing here to push, like, and especially like I was talking about like ska, and like how ska Twitter is really more open and the bands are more open. It's not just three white dudes whining about their CDs. There's also that, like the scene have a hard time to open to more diversity and talking about more thing. Like one day there was this thing like a Pink Shift posted a picture of one of the show, and you can see just the crowd. Everybody's wearing masks. It's only people in their teens. An incredibly diverse cast of people all genre, of all background. And I was like, that's the scene I was really wanting to see, where everybody is welcome and it's fun. And at the same time, there was a breakout COVID case at a skate punk show in Montreal because all these mid-30s, late 40s white men didn't want to wear the mask at the venue. And I was like, that summarized this. They don't understand where the world is, and then they keep relying on that nostalgia where things has to be, and all these new bands that just embrace all of that. And I think that's good. And also that's why ska is thriving and punk is more taking on the backseat, because the scene has not renewed. And it's the case when you look at what people are listening to. There was like Punk Rock Vinyl who did their 100th album of the year, and you can tell like how NoFX went to the final when this terrible band, terrible album, but because in that scene you always look backwards and not ahead, you don't give the chance to the new band, you don't give the chance to the new of anything new. You just go back to what you like when you're 18 or 19, like 1999 for the release of short music for short people on Fat Music.
45 minutes later.
Well,
yes, I like segues.
that's a really good segue, and I won't ruin it by asking other questions. So we'll see if we can work them in later. So, the premise of this show is we assign our guests a year, and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. And so I gave you the year 1999.
Yes.
And before we get to short music, what are some other records that came out that year that you considered talking about? Dylan and I just recently did on our Patreon, actually this afternoon, we recorded a couple picks. We called a starting five, where we each pick 5 records from the year to talk about. And what did we discover, Dylan? Was it that 99 is a really good top-heavy year?
Yeah, that was something that we talked about maybe a little bit before, too, because we were looking at, I think we were both trying to find more obscure things to talk about on the Patreon. And it was kind of like, these are not a lot of great choices, but there are like a ton of big records that you've heard of. Like everyone's heard of them. Like heard of these bands, know these records specifically. 99 is a really, really interesting year. 98 and 99, I feel like, are really, really, really interesting years as far as like there's so much going on and so many different sounds, and it's all big. Mm-hmm. Like, it was big then, it's still big now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was looking at like the top, looking at like White Stripes, Blink-182, Rage Against the Machine. There's an American football album there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they were that big in 90. They were totally out of my radar at the time.
The one that was huge for me in 99 was Enema of the State. So like 99, I was 16, turning 17, and 99 was the year that I, after a brief dalliance with radio rock in 97, 98, like my favorite band in 1998 was Our Lady Peace. I don't know if they made the jump over to the States. Oh, they did?
They did.
Okay. So their record Clumsy, like that was my be all end all in 98. And then in one of my classes, somebody lent me Live Fast Diarrhea by the Vandals. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then from there, it was like, obviously, Green Day, Blink-182, the bigger bands that funneled me into the nichier stuff, the Fat Records, et cetera, et cetera. But in 99, like Enema was the first, I think it was the first new Blink record that came out after I had become a fan. And I was obsessed. I think that's the record that I listened to the most that year, but I didn't pick that one because that's an obvious choice. What can you say about that record that hasn't been endlessly litigated for the past 2.5 decades? Like
there's a whole podcast dedicated to that band.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
The thing is, it's really interesting because I was totally in a different place than Chris, like in 99. Like, it's been like 6 years. I've been really super involved punk rock and like Southern Californian punk. And I grew up in a tiny countryside town in France. So it was super tough to find all these records. So around like 94, started finding them. And by the time it was 99, I was like starting writing professionally about music. I had my radio show. I had tons years of fanzine. I still remember this album, Blink-182, being released, and I was like, is that the drummer from Aquabats? And it's a terrible copy of Green Day. And I was like never getting into it at the time. But and also what was really interesting for Blink-182 in France is like all these punk bands, like even I'm going to say Green Day and Offspring, they've never been that big. They've been on radio, but they've never been that huge band. And Blink-182 started being big, and it was like super weird to see like a band like that starting being big in France. And I was like, oh wow, it seems weird, but good for them. But yeah, at the time I was like really the maximum rock and roll. I know what's punk, that's not punk. If you that type of thing, like your classic 5 years, 6 years into something, be like, yeah, I know more than anybody. What's that music? Oh, it's on a major label. Ooh.
Do you remember any of those bands you were listening to then?
In 1999?
Yeah.
There are a lot of French bands. Like I was obsessed with my own scene because first it was hard time to records or any record. It's get better around that, but so I grew up like really local bands and a more national French band, and I was really into that like bands. But you probably never heard of them, like Burning 7/8. There was like my favorite bands. Burning Heads ended up being on Epitaph Europe and Records, which is pretty good for a French band. But yeah, that was mostly that. And everything like on Fat, Epitaph, Burning Heart, like all the. That's why short music for short people was great, because it has, for the first time, a lot of European bands and a lot of American bands. Because usually when we get this compilation, it was only like, oh, it's a band from LA, sometimes San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And like there was like a huge scene in Sweden, like from Melancholy, Pride Ball, 59 Time the Pain, like all these bands, like they were like cool, but also closer to where I grew up. But yeah, I'm thinking, White Stripes, but below that there's Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah.
Which is Chris' new favorite band.
What record did they release that year?
Calculating Infinity.
Oh, okay.
That's the one
I've only just so a small digression. That in 2021, I got kind of fed up with the state of punk rock, and things were going a little bit too emo for my taste. So I was like, well, I'm going to listen to the opposite. So I got into death metal, I got into metalcore, and I listened to Dillinger Escape Plan for the very first time. Whereas like 10 years ago, I'd be like, dude, calm down, stop screaming at me. But last year I was like, yes, scream directly into my face, inject this into my marrow. I'm angry, I'm fed up. So yeah.
It's funny, Dylan and I have both also like gone further into metal than we have since like our early 20s. Like when we came up, it was metalcore was really big in our in our local scene, so that was like kind of the thing that we were listening to. And then we got into more extreme metals into like our early 20s, and then like we came into punk kind of late, weirdly. But over the last like 10 years, I probably barely listened to any metal. But in the last 2 years, or the last year really in general, I've listened to way more metal records than I have in the last like decade. So
yeah, I get it.
Like, yeah, I think it's just I'm like, what could it be? It's like, oh yeah, it's the world.
One of my favorite memories of shows was Dillinger Escape Plan opening for System of a Down in a huge venue in Paris, and I really loved that band, so I was very happy to see them. But I don't think the crowd coming to see System of a Down on the top of Toxicity being released and being the biggest band on the radio, they were ready for that, and that was a delight. Seeing people being so confused, being what I'm watching right now, that was really great.
I saw Dillinger Escape Plan open for As I Lay Dying. Yeah.
So they were on their way down. Point.
Yeah, because
like coming from opening for System of a Down.
So
in 2001, 2002.
It really depends. This type of package, it really depends on who's your booking agents who want to do that. Like, there was like Rancid opened for Rage Against the Machine, I think in 95, 96. And then they never opened for the Machine, but really, it really depends on like,
Yeah.
Tom Morello like your band, you're gonna tour with that. There's something about that on Flag, where they tour with Rage.
The show I saw, it was actually more of like, it was 2 tours that kind of collided at the same city. So it was like, it was like a 7-band show. It was ridiculous. It was like Dillinger was on tour with their set of bands, and As I Dying was on tour with their set of bands, and they're just in the same city at the same time. Like, well, let's just do it together. So like, I saw so many bands that night. Like Whitechapel was the opener for everybody, and who else was on that? Evergreen Terrace was there.
Wow.
Still Remains. Shit, I'm blanking on August Burns Red. Like they had. It's like, why do you have August Burns Red? You already have As I Dying on the show. It's the same thing, but yeah. Well, cool. We've mentioned it a couple times. Let's go ahead and talk about the actual record that we are talking about today. So,
yes,
you selected Short Music for Short People.
Don't wanna have to take your shit anymore. I finally concluded that life is way too short. Oh, the ticking of the hourglass, the tiny grains of sand, it beckons me like gravity, like signposts on the land. Now you got what you wanted without force or reprimand. The seconds are all running up this burning town of hell. Let's go.
And I have a couple, I call them stats on the album. So this is a 101 track compilation from Fat Records. This was 101 bands doing songs in 30 seconds or less on average. There's a couple that go above, and
A couple cheaters.
yeah. And it was released June 1st, 1999, so smack dab in the middle of the year, right before summer. And punk has a history of short songs, and this was an idea that Fat Mike had, and he requested all of these bands write songs for him. There's a handful that didn't. They're just older tracks. The record peaked at 191 on the Billboard 200, which I'm amazed it even made it 200. And it's a 49-minute comp. I definitely have had longer compilations, from around the same
with
time.
less band.
Yeah.
Yes, way less bands.
It's
so
amazing.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's amazing, especially at that time. My attention span was not easily sustained by a lot of the comps that I was getting, and I enjoyed a lot of the comps, like the Fat Record stuff. I think Fat even had another regular comp that year. I think it was Fat 4, whatever one starts with May 16. And I would like enjoy maybe a third of most of the comps I got, with 1/5 of the number of bands that were on them. Whereas Short Music, even listening to it now and trying to make a list of like my 10 favorite and my 10 least favorite, it's hard. Like everything is so short, gets to the point so quickly that I can listen to the whole thing, all 50 minutes of it, and never feel like it's time to put something else on. It's like it's all go, no slow, and it's never boring. Even the songs I don't like, I'm like, okay. I mean, aside from there's one transphobic song by One Hit Wonder. I'm like, ugh. And then a couple of the, I guess, experimental ones like the Bouncing Souls and stuff. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. But for the most part, it's a solid listen front to back, which is rare for compilation, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's the gimmick really works for it in that regard, as far as like not really having any major duds, because any of the ones where you're like, I don't really care for this band, it's over.
Yeah.
Before you, like, by the time you really come to that conclusion, you're like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like you're not. What are you gonna go skip this 30-second track?
Yeah.
It takes unless longer. It starts off immediately, you're just like, nope. Like
it takes longer to pull your Walkman, out of your winter jacket and find the skip button. It's like, may as well just let it run.
I still remember putting the CD in my stereo and seeing 99 and not 101. I was like, how's it gonna work when I'm 99? I'm gonna get the last three. How's this gonna work? So that was. I still remember that, like, to this day. Like, this compilation was so awesome. As I said, for me, when I look at the lineup, it was not like, oh, show off. I can show vinyl if I want to. No, but as I said earlier, like, there's a lot of bands, like European bands, that never, and for me, especially grew up in France, I always thought this European band were as good as the American band, but because, I don't know, they're American or from LA, they have like this shine, and like, oh, this band from Europe do not care. And like, you can see on the record, like, yeah, oh, wow, they are like setting Suffer, they're like 59 times the pain. Now they get that, they have Bizo and stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool to have like so many bands. And also at the time, it was also complicated to find new bands all the time. Like, you had to read the fanzine, you had to because in the magazine, they were not really thinking about that scene anymore that much, at least where I grew up. So here you're like 101 new bands. Oh, cool. I always wanted to listen to that Black Flag band. Oh, they're on here. Perfect.
A lot of these bands, I had never heard of them before, because 99 was kind of my ground zero for getting into punk rock. So a lot of these tracks represented my first listen of, like, that's the first time I ever heard Rancid. And at the time, that was not for me. It was like, cool bass riff. Why is he singing like that?
My impression of that Rancid song was like, they're gonna burn half of their 30 seconds on a bass solo.
Yeah,
front.
Which is a good summary of Rancid.
Yeah,
that's
it
the
is
thing
accurate.
I love the most. It's bands, no matter if you like or dislike song, they distilled what they are as a band in 30 seconds. And usually the best band are the one who make the best real song, real like Battle Region song in like 30 seconds. You have a real song that's amazing and it's just 30 seconds. And Rancid is that. It's like a lot of Matt Freeman and a cool, catchy, weird singing Tim Armstrong.
It sounds like he's singing around a tennis ball in his mouth. What's he gonna do now? That's trouble. Like, okay, all right, it's a choice. And then later on, I learned, that wasn't a gimmick for the comp. That's
no,
them.
that's just, yeah.
That's always like that.
That's the thing. If you like that, it's very likely you're gonna like any Rancid song. If you don't like this song, it's gonna be complicated to like the albums because it's so
like
them.
The Good Riddance track, I maintain, is the best Good Riddance song. I like Good Riddance. I don't love Good Riddance. I like Good Riddance. I really like that. Would have been one of my other 1999 records, was Operation Phoenix.
Good album. Really good.
But their track on Short Music, I feel like you listen to that, you don't really need to listen to much more Good Riddance after that. Like, it distills everything that they do well in 30 seconds, and you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Super fast, kind of self-serious lyrics, not a whole lot of humor going on there, straight to the point, kind of catchy, done. It's like, okay, I'm good with Good Riddance for a while now.
So did you both get this in 1999?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. 99 was also the first year I went to Warped Tour. But I also went to Warped Tour the next year. So I could have gotten it in 2000. I just do have a distinct memory of driving to Montreal from Ottawa and listening to this record on repeat. I'm pretty sure that was 99. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And to me, I was still doing like your show and stuff like that. So I received it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what's that? So Fat is sending. Because also at the time, all these labels had a lot of money. And like, if you had like a fanzine or a radio show in the middle of France, you receive promo from Epitaph and Fat. So that's how I get it. And I really love that compilation.
And I think one of my favorite things, aside from the music itself, was the packaging of it. Obviously, a super cool cover, obviously painted just for it. Woman dancing with some Martians or something like that. But then the booklet that came with it has a little section for every single track on there. Sometimes they got lyrics, but usually you get some kind of info about all these bands that I had never heard of. Like, you get the label information, PO boxes to write to them for stuff, which especially in that era, it's like early internet. Not everybody had websites. Not everything was super accessible back then. and to have this just sheer number of bands with their contact information was super helpful for someone like me living in Ottawa, where we had a couple of record stores, but they weren't very big, couldn't get very much stuff. Anything that I did want to buy, I would have to buy as an import at HMV, which meant I'd have to save up my allowance for weeks to buy a CD for $30 and then listen to 2 tracks and be like, well, this kind of sucks. But being able to learn about mail order and stuff like this was one of my first forays into that, realizing, oh, I can just send away for a catalog and get cool stickers in the mail and stuff. That was like revolutionary to me. And this comp was my introduction to that.
And a booklet has been made by Sergi from Samiam.
Oh,
I was doing
is
a
he the
lot
guy
of
slapped together by Serge?
Yeah. He has this particular that he used on all the Fat record, like especially in that time he was doing like most of it. And he has a particular font he used all the time, and so it's him.
Oh, that's cool.
Speaking of which, that the Sam I Am track on there, I really like that Sam I Am track. It's the only Sam I Am track I have ever enjoyed.
Ooh.
Oh,
That's why
I heard that one.
Band.
16-year-old
It's a very
punk
good
Chris
one.
hears that. 16-year-old punk Chris hears that and is like, oh my God, this band is awesome. They're so fast. And then I bought one of their CDs. It's like, is it the same band? Sam I Am? Really?
Yeah, same band.
I used all the places I had left you when I wrote this down. I didn't take too long, came up with this to the second song. Wanted to express how much I missed you since you've gone. I didn't take too long, came up with this to the second song. I didn't take too long, came up with this to the second song.
You know,
That's
so
fun,
that
yeah.
track is one that I'm like, this doesn't sound like Sam I Am. Like that was my
Yeah.
big takeaway from it.
Yeah.
He's in the
But I thi-
background, but
Yeah, I think they get the assignment. Hey, we do a punk compilation with 30-second song, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do a punk song, and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
Make you think, oh, if. But again, yeah, they're at the Gilman Street scene before being Sam Am, so they know how to. They just choose not to.
Dylan, did you what was your knowledge or experience with this compilation before listening to it for the show?
I've heard the name of this compilation. I've never listened to it, so I didn't really know, and I didn't know like the full extent of it of it being 101. I figured it was just going to be a compilation of short songs. I didn't realize it was going to be all that many short songs. So this was kind of a new experience. I mean, I was definitely aware of like Fat Wreck and like the whole like legacy of Fat Wreck compilations is like a whole subcategory of the Fat Wreck story. So I knew that this was a significant one going into it. I didn't realize starting it though that it was going to be all original songs for this compilation with the few exceptions like the
I have them down here.
what are the ones that
Like No Means No,
Yeah, all the
Descendants,
old bands,
Circle Jerk.
But basically, like all the bands from.
there was I want to say that there was a Big Wig. I think that one was
Yes.
Yeah.
previously released.
The Chicks,
and then,
Chicks Dig It was also on
Yeah.
Yeah.
the record they released the year before, I think.
Same with the Screeching Weasel track. It was from the 98 album.
yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus.
that's all of them. Yeah, and I wondered too if Fat Mike asked for Deny Everything and I Like Food and Spray Paint, because he probably would have been, that probably might have been like even the inspiration for this whole idea.
That was
Yeah, that would make
something
sense.
I was thinking. Like I was like the first one that I hit that I was like, I know this is from something previously. I was like, that's all of these seem like they were written for this record. It's weird to have this like random songs that pop up that are from older records. But then I kind of realized after like the next, like seeing like Circle Jerks and Black Flag were on here and being like, okay, so like maybe this is kind of referencing those songs, and it's not a bad idea to put those songs on here because like it's 1999. You've heard of these bands, but where have you heard them?
I think it's good to have those, the solid construction of those classic pillars there, because especially if you're asking 100 101 bands for songs, quality control is going to be kind of dicey. Like, I don't need, maybe he asked, like, is this the extent of everyone he asked? Like, did he ask 101 bands and he got 101 tracks and they all made it to the CD? Or was it like, because in my mind, it would be like, especially thinking back to writing our album, for example, we knew we wanted 10 songs, but we wrote way more than that because we wanted to whittle it down to make sure we had the best of the best, the cream of the crop, whatever. So if you're putting together a listenable compilation of 101 tracks, in my mind, you'd need to start with like 3 times that many and then whittle it down to the ones that aren't absolute garbage. So if you've at least got the starting point of some of these classic ones to pepper in there, if you've got a run of a couple of kind of garbage tracks, then suddenly Deny Everything comes on, which is not only one of the best songs on this CD, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest punk songs of all time. You're like, okay, it kind of snaps everything back into focus and then does a reset, and then you can continue on with some of the newer stuff.
I would say that not every single band put up their best work on this compilation.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, I mean, I do think you have to consider who's compiling this. Is Fat Mike compiling this? I'm sure a lot of these got on here because they made Fat Mike laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing his sense of humor. Some of the weaker songs, some of the more offensive songs.
But even your band in '99, like even like if you look in 2021, like you can record pretty much like we did a song for a compilation recently. We recorded in our jam space and it sounds pretty good. But like in 99, so 98 probably when Mike asked the band, hey, I do that record a 30-second song. So you're just like, okay, I have to write it. I have to find a studio. I have to pay somebody. I have to put like all these efforts. So that's normal at some point. Like if you're like by region, they have their own studio. Who cares? Like they can record that. Green Day the same. But if you're a smaller band, just like, yeah, I guess let's find a friend. Let's do 1 hour studio, record something, send that. It costs us like $200 and we're on the fat compilation. But there's also that. Like not at the time it was tougher to record. Or you had like a 4-track and you record on a tape or DAT and you send that to the label. Like it's the more I think about its compilation like that, how they make that happen. Like and it's definitely friends of friends, and like, oh, we tour with that band. You send an email, you call them. You know, that's all the logistic behind that.
And the production on almost all of them is pretty top notch. Like there's very few that you get to them and you're like, ow, that hurts my ears. Like it's pretty consistent throughout. It's very well mixed and mastered from track to track. That you're never considering that this is 101 different bands recording in 101 different spaces with 101 different mixers probably. It's like it comes out sounding pretty whole, like as of one piece, like it was all kind of intended to be together. It's kind of amazing.
I would imagine that the majority of these bands tacked these songs onto whatever recording sessions they had within like the year span of him probably asking and this record coming out. So I'm not too shocked at the quality, but you're definitely onto something with the consistency of the mix. Because a lot of these, I mean, and there are ones where it's like that have that extra little polish. I mean, like Green Day, which even the Green Day track there sounds a little bit more lo-fi in comparison to like the Bad Religion one is like, whoa, that's slick. And then even like Dillinger 4 sounded like pretty hi-fi, you know. Yeah. More so than you would have expected them to be in 99 for a 30-second comp track, you know?
I thought of that Living In song, too. It seemed like extra glossy compared to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah. But they were big. That's the thing. Living In at that time, they were big Australia. Like the first album, just like they were the Green Day of Australia. They were playing like huge venue. So it's not. They were not the talk show Melbourne or they are from. They were a little bigger. But no, the overall, especially now with fans and see how things happen to be on compilation, things like that. At the time, to me, that's really the thing. Wow. You call them, they write the song, record it, doesn't sound like crap, and master that and good, and like everybody's happy. There's also probably the idea, I think more on the European band, hey, we're going to be on a Fats compilation, which at the time was huge. Like that was the main way to find bands. I still remember the first time I found like the Punkorama compilation in my old Like what I had to travel to Paris to a place, and I found, oh yeah, and there's all this band, and then that's the only CD that you have with all this band. So you look all the liner notes and like what album do they have? Where can I find them? So bands also probably think, oh, that's gonna be so much exposure for us, and at the time that real value, and that, oh wow, I'm gonna be here by everybody across the globe because it's a Fat compilation. And as Green Day and Offspring was 99, they were kind of winding down in terms of popularity, but like also Blink-182 was like on skyrocketing to the top.
I feel like second for second, that Blink-182 song is probably the most expensive track on there. Like if you think about studio time, mixing and mastering, like it sounds like $1 million in 30 seconds for a track that back then, like as a massive Blink-182 fan in 1999, I was like, oh my God, there's a Blink-182 song on here. And it was that. And I was not big into the whole poo side of Blink-182. So like that was what, seeing their name on there was why I bought the record. And I was like, this track sucks. And even today, I'm like, that's fucking stupid. I get that it's okay. Yeah, that's the joke. It's stupid. It sounds like $1 million, and it's a ripoff of a George Carlin stand-up act. But I'll give it props for at least getting me to buy the thing, and that's how I discovered so many. Like that's the first time I heard Dillinger 4. So thanks, Blink-182.
I think the Blink track lands the joke. I think the harmonies are the part that really lands it. It's like, all right, these harmonies are really, really pretty.
Yeah.
Like I was gonna say the melody is kind of like, and it's got a nice melody, despite me like considering it one of the worst tracks on the entire comp.
Yeah. But again, if you like that track.
But among the songs that went for gross jokes, I think it's one of the standouts.
I mean, they are good at terrible jokes. That's the thing. And again, it's if you like that song, you're gonna love anything else you're gonna find from it too. It's just like, again, it's I mean, if you like it,
that's debatable.
If you like it, it's more. If you like it,
I like Family Reunion. I'm gonna listen to Neighborhoods now. That doesn't quite that doesn't compute.
You might like things. TH. And we didn't talk about TH, but TH tough.
Or the small thing.
Well, we're on the subject of ones we don't like. What are some other ones that you didn't like? I can go first. We mentioned that One Hit Wonder one. Fuck that song. I hate that song so much. That's literally the worst one. But
fuck that song. I don't even know who that band is. Good.
Yeah.
I had an album. I would have known. I received that. I never heard of that band. I think I listened to that album once. I was like, that's a really good name for that band.
But I also did not like. I thought the War song was just ridiculously dumb.
That's on my list too, and I guess that's their shtick. But it just always made me uncomfortable. Like
that's the goal.
And not to take away from your list, but a small digression with the discomfort factor. Sick of It All's track Blatty is not a bad song, but it also, I don't know what it is about the lyrics. More blatty than a human egg. I don't know what it means, but it makes me feel weird, and I don't like it. I don't like what it does to me. It makes me cringy inside. Again, I have no idea what he's talking about, but I don't like it.
That one jumped out to me too. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I hated the Real McKenzie song because it was like they didn't even try and write a song at the beginning of it.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's one that I struggle not to skip. Out of the whole record, I'm like, I mean, I don't like the Real McKenzies anyway, but the whole thing with the voices and yeah, that's on my list too. So far, we're lining up pretty close.
Yeah. I'm really curious what else you got. I didn't like Nerf Herder just because I didn't really like the lyrical content on that one.
Yeah.
Doing laundry.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the Mr. T Experience one either because it was going so hard. It was going. One of the things that I noted was that all of the bands that were trying really hard to be funny were not at all.
Yeah.
There are a few exceptions where they're trying to be funny and they are funny, which we can get to those later. But
I'm okay with that Mr. T Experience one just because it's so catchy. It gets stuck in my head, and it has been stuck in my head for like 20 years. And sometimes when I'm frustrated, it just pops into my head. It's just a bunch of curse words strung together. But it, for some reason, it's always there. I don't like it, but it's there. It's always in the back of my mind. And it's like 11 seconds, so I give it a pass.
That Guttermouth song is not even a song.
Yeah.
What even is that?
That's awful. It's not funny.
Yes.
I always kind of hated that band, so.
Yeah. On the worst show and worst interview I ever.
Oh God.
Terrible.
That's
Terrible band.
The magic.
Don
magician
Camaro's lost his mind. Yeah.
Selling his stuff.
I don't get it. I was even Googling last night. I was like, is Don Camaro a person? No, it's someone they made up. So it's like a joke about that, an unfunny joke about someone who doesn't exist. It's like, oh, okay, this is stupid.
And not even a song. It's just talking.
Yeah.
So on the same topic, I was wondering who Sarah Fisher was on the No Use for a Name song.
Yeah.
So when I interviewed No Use for a Name, I asked them. It's someone who works at Fat, and it was her actual voicemail.
Oh,
Okay.
that's kind of neat.
So
a nice little.
That was a internal joke, and there's a couple of is that duck piece, like the Eric stand-in.
Yeah.
Where at the time you didn't know the name of the people in the band. So who's that guy? Oh, that's Steve from NoFX. I was like, okay. Or the H201 with Mr. Brett, because Mr. Brett at the time recorded and produced their album, but it didn't work well.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
No, that was on my list.
I thought that DOA song just sounded terrible. I hate punk rock.
Yeah, and it's terrible because that was the first song I ever heard of DOA. And now I live in Canada, and I'm just like, everybody talk to me about that band. That's a great album, but I always think about that song, how much I don't like that song.
Yeah.
The double-edged sword of discovered. Because if you don't like that first song, it's along with
that Misfit song sucks, but that's just because it's Michael Gray.
Yeah, but you know what? Everything after 99, it's kind of
It's all buried.
I don't know.
And then I'm not a NoFX fan, so I thought See Her P was real stupid. And the evidence was there all along.
So I'll give that song a little bit of credit because the melody is great. If you take away the lyrics, it's a solid little song. And back then I really enjoyed it. Now, because I am totally over hearing about Fat Mike's fetishes and peccadillos, and I get it.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't need another song about it. This was kind of the first, or maybe not the first, but it was in the early stages of him getting super personal about this kind of thing. So I was okay with it back then. Now I'm like, but the melody, it's a super cool melody, cool bass line. So I couldn't, initially it was on my worst list. And last night I had a slight change of heart and just moved it to the side of the worst list.
It's not on either list anymore.
Yeah, it's in purgatory.
I wanted to dislike it more than I actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the melody is just like, you shouldn't have been able to pull off that good of a melody in this short, dumb song.
Yeah.
To me, it's more so the song is not finished.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Virgin song versus the NoFX song, it's kind of also a good resume of these two bands. Like Virgin get the assignment. You even have like a bridge within 30 seconds. And the NoFX one's that good. You can tell it's a song that he started to write, and you're just like, 30 seconds. Let's stop it. And it's no.
To be fair though, that is kind of their MO. They're not really a verse chorus, bridge chorus band. It's kind of like, here's a part, here's another part, and here's an end part. So it kind of fits in their scheme.
You should have walked more. Walk more, Mike.
Well, this is also the same year that they put out The Decline too.
Yeah.
I wanted to point that out. This is the long record of short songs is the same year as the short record of a long song.
Yeah.
NoFX.
I mean,
that was really
when
funny.
we were looking at the album, we could talk about, like, we had a quick discussion about The Decline, because to me, like, it's probably for Chris and I a really strong album that we really love. there's a lot of things going on that album, but it also pointed like what NoFX not anymore. And older states of skate punk is kind of tied to that. Like that's what this type of music should be, like clever, fast.
Dare I
things
say
you
it?
don't hear.
Progressive.
Yeah,
A bit
and
of
that's the thing.
prog punk.
Exactly, and right now even NoFX doing that more. Like even it's kind of like they put all their eggs in that records and just like, oh, I don't have anything. Like my cake is gone. I put everything in that album and it's gone. But short music is more interesting because there's so many bands and you can see who's continue to be a great band. Like who would have thought like in '99 when you have like a Descendant song and they had like this one album on Epitaph and then they stopped touring and everything, that in 2021 you would still have Descendant playing shows and good album. Well, NoFX releasing good albums.
Are there any other tracks you had on your hated list before we move?
There's two extra ones. So our list's pretty much aligned there. But the Vandals track was a big disappointment to me back in, like, I'm still a big Vandals fan. That was they were my first punk rock band. And then hearing that song is just like a kind of a cappella. Doesn't do what they do well. Yeah, it's too much of a joke. So it's more of a it's kind of catchy. I'll give it that. It was more of a disappointment than a bad song. And then
C minus.
Yeah, and then the Avail track. I mean, I was never a fan of Avail, but this out of all the songs on here, that one seems like it took as long to write as it does to play it through. It's like a terrible rhyme. It's like, I'm being tortured, I'm in a cherry orchard. Like, okay, no. Try again. And then there's kind of like a split lyric. I'm being tortured, I'm in a not a happy man. It's like, oh, it's just so bad. It's so bad.
Well, I'm being tortured, I'm in a cherry orchard, but I can't pick one. Well, I'm being tortured, I'm in a cherry, not a happy man. Not a happy man. Not a happy man. Not a happy man. Well, I'm being tortured, I'm in a cherry, not a happy man. Not a happy man. It sucks. Let's leave it.
We should start a podcast. We judge bands' rhymes.
The only other song I had on my list was I didn't like that Bigwig song Freegan because I don't know what they're trying to say. I guess they're
basically saying fuck propaganda. They're saying fuck propaganda, which is against my actual religion. So I like that song too.
I thought it was like not hearing it. Like they're trying to do a propaganda impression too. I think on that song. Yeah. Okay. I was like, I don't like this, and I don't know why, and that clears it up. They're making fun of me.
Especially with the like at the end, the little vocal tag. Consider someone else. Stop preaching about animals is a direct reference to Less Talk, More Rock. Consider someone else. Stop consuming animals.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. The irony of Bigwig making fun of propaganda.
No. One of the big disappointment tracks for me is the Muff song on here. I'm disappointed that it was an acoustic and it sounds very demo-y. It's not bad. It's just not what I wanted.
I'm not even sure
not
is
what
it
they
in
do
English?
well. It sounds like it's in German.
Yeah. It's
Dutch, maybe.
On the disappointing side, I was disappointed with the Damned one because it feels like that was just the intro to a Damned song, and they didn't get a chance to act. It was like they were like recording, and they're like, "Wait, that's it? Oh,
yeah, yeah." Where's the rest?
The Damned one was interesting to me because I was like, I mean, it's not like thrilling. It definitely sounds like an intro, like you said, but that one was interesting to me that it was like good for them. That they asked the Damned, and the Damned actually wrote a song for this. Like, you'd think that in '99 they'd be like, "Whatever, we don't need this."
Yeah. But that's the thing that's great with that compilation is like to have this mix of, I don't want to say legacy band, but like the old guard with the new bands at the time. Now they are old bands.
They're all old.
But yeah, Pennywise, not a great song. Okay, it's okay. Let's just like check the boxes. Like, oh, what's a Pennywise song? Okay, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I was disappointed with the One Man Army song just because it was like, why are you doing like a country western song? Like that's not even your thing.
Yeah, and again, that's
like Gogol Bordello.
Yeah. Well, what is the deal with the Bouncing Soul song? What is that? Is he singing in another language too?
I don't know. I never understood that one either. I was never a big Bouncing Souls fan. I remember that summer that this came out, and I went to Warped Tour. They were playing Warped Tour, and as soon as I got home, I saved up for a couple weeks and I bought Hopeless Romantic, which I think came out this year as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
I bought it because of the live show, and then quickly discovered that I was not a Bouncing Souls fan. I still kind of get that song stuck in my head every once in a while. I'm a hopeless romantic. But
it's a catchy song.
Yeah.
They do catchy
but there's
songs.
just something about his voice that I could never quite get into. In theory, I should like that band. I work with a guy who's like a diehard Bouncing Souls fan, and it's all he ever talks about. And every time, he always forgets that I say I'm not a Bouncing Souls fan. So every time I talk to him, he's like, dude, you got to listen to Bouncing Souls. You got to listen to Bouncing Souls. I'm like, I'm not into them. And then I go and I try and listen to them again just to give it another shot. And it's like, nope, I'm not a Bouncing Souls fan.
No.
Yeah.
So that track especially, I'm like, no.
I've been through so many different attempts at the Bouncing Souls. It's
Yeah.
like the work, like you said, I should on paper, I should like it.
Yeah.
And I put in the
Catchy.
work, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of music.
Yeah.
At the end of
We
the
don't have
day,
to.
you can plan, you can think you're gonna like something, you like it or you don't, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So what are some ones that are your favorites on here? I think we probably mentioned a couple.
Yeah. I mean, so the top of my list, I love that Dillinger 4 song. I think that's
It's
my favorite song
so good.
on the whole thing.
I have it
it's
too.
In 30 seconds, like Fab was saying, it distills everything great about Dillinger 4 with cool little riffs, catchy, and the lyrics. I wrote a couple of them down, but I think my favorite is "I get a headache from the things I believe in." I just love that as a lyric. Like, it makes sense and it explains a lot about my worldview. It's like I believe in these things so much that sometimes it kind of depresses me about, my cynical worldview or something. It gives me a fucking headache. And it's totally true.
I've definitely had that feeling before. I was like, God, I wish I didn't care about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. And then the follow-up lyric to that is "I've got nothing to say." It's like, the things I believe in get me down so much, I got nothing left to say about it. Like, what else is there to say? It doesn't really matter. It's such a little nihilistic, and the song itself is so upbeat and catchy, but once you study the lyrics, it's like, that's Dillinger 4 in a 30-second nutshell.
Because
so
they even
catchy, kind of
threw in
depressing.
those like clap parts in there.
Yeah.
And then like that
I've got
weird
nothing to say.
guitar effect at the end too. It's just like,
Yeah.
This is brilliant.
Yeah.
They also land a good fart joke.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect title. Farts are jazz to assholes.
Take that, Blink-182.
You can't just say cuss words. You got to make it clever.
Yeah, but that's the thing with like this great song. Like, it's tough. Write a good song with good lyrics, a memorable song that lasts 30 seconds. That's not easy, and that's why you can tell that bands are good at that exercise. They're usually really great bands because they understand what a good song should be, and they're able to do that in 30 seconds. Like Bad Religion.
Yeah, theirs is good. Theirs is one of my favorites too. And
Thank
it was
you.
like, it was one of the ones that it was like, wow, they just did a whole ass Bad Religion song.
Yeah.
They cheated.
And
It's
the
like
thing-
40 seconds long.
Yeah.
Have a bridge.
They
Have a
took
bridge.
they took some time from others who didn't use their full 30 seconds.
They took Mr.
Yeah,
T
true.
experiences.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put it in my favorite band, and again, like, to me, it's like, oh, it's a lesson of like, what's a Bad Religion song? That's this 30 seconds. You have like everything they have built their popularity on. Not very surprising though. Unlike like the Living End song was brilliant.
The Living End song, I remember. So I was like maybe a year into playing guitar at that point, and for some reason I was like, I'm gonna tab out that solo. I could not play a solo to save my life. I still barely can, but for some reason in 1999 I was like, I'm gonna pull this audio onto my computer and I'm gonna slow it down and I'm gonna tab it out. And I remember trying to tab it out, and I spent like 2 days on it and uploaded it to, I forget what the site would have been at the time, and it just got destroyed. It's like, this isn't correct. Downvote. I never attempted tablature writing ever again.
Go ahead.
The old one.
Pardon? Oh yeah, the all one. I got none. I've never been a giant all fan, because there's always been a little bit too much going on, and that's certainly the case for this track. Yeah. But because it's so short, it just totally works. Like, there's so many rhythm changes. Like, the song takes a 180 like 3 or 4 times in the span of 30 seconds. I'm sure it's a Stephen Edgerton composition.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The song makes sense, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's all. So yeah, I will never be able to go through a full album of that, which is exactly what happened after I listened to the old ones. The thing that makes me laugh, I had the chance of working with Bill Stevenson, and I talk about that. And the thing that drives me crazy, it's for him, there's no difference between Old and Descendants. And if you listen to that compilation, listen to the Descendant track, listen to the old track, and tell me there's no, for you, it's the same band. And for him writing songs, it's the same thing. So we would have had Descendant playing jazz. Milo was the band in like 88 or 92. I'm just like, oh, it's so weird. Like the dichotomy of that band and this musician that you can hear on this record. And both songs are, the same guy.
Yeah.
Which to me means Milo guides it more, but go ahead. Sorry.
I've got a special place in my heart for the Ataris. The radio still sucks.
I'm really fucking sick. I'm back at 311 and Marilyn Manson. I wish someone would break his fucking neck. And what about Bush and Lane? That's Oasis. And talk about pretentious. Why don't they just vote and put off the map? Every now and then I turn it on again, but it's plain to see that the radio still sucks. Every now and then I turn it on again, but it's plain to see that the radio still sucks.
It's super catchy, and it basically was kind of a manifesto for how I suddenly felt, the enlightened punk that I was at 16 years old, knocking Oasis and Marilyn Manson. It's a catchy song, and then also that was, the Ataris were my first punk rock show earlier that year. I saw them play with a band called Beefcake at a little Irish pub in downtown Ottawa.
I really liked the Ataris one. That was one that it kicks right off, and I'm like, who's that? And I went and looked at the track listing, and it's like, that makes sense. But yeah,
I thought that the AFI song was really solid. Like, it was just like, whoa, that they fit a lot into that song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a full AFI, like old school AFI song, 30 seconds, with the woes, with everything. Like, they make a parody of themselves, but yeah. I put it in my list. Really.
It's a really good one. I really enjoy that period of AFI. So, and that's like been a recent realization for me. So it was one of my favorites. But I like the subtle joke of the song title being "Hearts Frozen Solid, Thawed Once More by the Spring of Rage, Despair, and Hopelessness." Like, they were like, we're gonna make the song title longer than the song.
Yeah. But that's where you see bands that are clever. They understand the assignment, and then just let's show the world who we are.
I wonder if there was ever any debate when they were putting together the artwork. Was it like, are we going to put the song titles on the back on the track listing, or is it just going to be a list of the bands? And then they probably got AFI's track, and they're like, fuck it, band names only. There's no way we can fit a paragraph.
I can definitely see that happen.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Swing and Utters track because I've always really liked the acoustic Swing and Utters stuff.
Yeah, that's a fun one to play.
It's a good song, but I was disappointed that it was a folky Swing and Utters and not.
They do a lot of that, so it's not like
it's not misrepresentative, but
right.
I was never big into them, back then, like in '99, if an acoustic song came on, I'd be like, nah, fuck this sucks. So back then I was not into it. But the more I listened to them, I did get into the more acoustic-y, folky stuff. And now I can handle acoustic stuff because I'm an old person. So I can appreciate it now. It's catchy.
You even are on an acoustic compilation.
Yeah, that's true. An acoustic. I just did an acoustic Rancid cover. I'm not even a big Rancid fan.
The song is
I was
good.
like, hey,
Finding on Bandcamp somewhere.
I kind of retconned that one from my memory because there was one review of the whole compilation. They did a track by track. Mine was the last track on it, and they said that it had no character. So I was like depressed for days, so now I kind of even forget that I did it.
And honestly, I don't like acoustic. I'm not a huge Rancid fan, but covers is really great. So
Thanks, Fab.
find it on Twitter somewhere. I
think it's called Let Me Go. Let Me Go is the name of the comp.
find that on Bandcamp.
Anyway, there's our plug for not even our actual band. That Green Day song I've always loved.
Yeah,
it's so catchy. It's got a little verse chorus thing, and it's really hard to sing. Whenever I try to play it, Fab is holding up our record and distracting me. Whenever I try to, there's one line. What is it? Considering our luck. There's like so many notes that he packs in there, and he hits each one, and I can never replicate it. I change the key, I can never get it. I always sound like a fucking idiot singing that.
It stood out to me listening to it. It was like he like fell into this little like perfect little like I don't know what he's doing, but that's the thing that stood out about that one.
Yeah, I put it on my list too, and at the time I really wanted to dislike it because it was acoustic, and I really wanted a big fat Green Day song. But like the melody is so good, you can tell he's such a good singer and songwriter. Like, hey, look, all these bands are playing guitars and drums. I think I'm just gonna be me and my guitar and good as anybody else, and I'm as powerful as anybody else. And she's like,
it's like a little bittersweet love story in 30 seconds, and it's a good track.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Let me change that. I'm going to say it's a great track.
That would be a really fun project if in 2021 the same band had to do the same thing and write new song. Like the AFI track would probably could be just thin and like weird drum loops and things like that. But I should probably gonna do the same thing. But that would be really, really fun. Like what Green Day would do like a doo-wop song.
What does the Offspring song sound like in 2022?
Oof.
A lot of autotune.
Definitely not as good as this one, because this one was good.
I like this.
I actually like this one. Yeah.
It's catchy. It's funny.
Yeah.
Molotov cocktails.
It takes a lot for me to admit that I like an Offspring song, and I like this Offspring song. Probably because it's so short, 30 seconds. It's got one joke, but it tells the joke well, and it's catchy.
Yeah, maybe that's what we were talking about the state of punk rock. Maybe that's the kind of problem right now. Like most of the band are too technical, playing too long. The songs are too long. Everything's too long. When you listen to that competition, it's like, oh yeah, you don't need much. If you're good at it, you don't need much. You should be able to say everything to say in less than 2 minutes or 30 seconds in that case.
Mm-hmm.
I like how I really enjoyed that Dancehall Crashers song, triple track.
Yeah.
It had to have taken so long to record that because it has so many like, so many voices and like the horns and the guitar, drum, like it's just so many different pieces to it.
And I was listening to that one last night and looking at the lyrics and and it's very meta. So it's about writing the song and how she didn't quite know what to do with it. So it's about her trying to distract from the fact that she couldn't write a decent song with all these production techniques. So she's like, I'm going to distract you with these oohs and ahs. And that's what the song is actually about.
Yeah.
And it's so impressive. It totally works.
Yeah. My note for that track was definitely listen to more Dancehall Crashers. And I realize that every time I hear them, I'm like, gotta listen to more Dancehall Crashers. And I don't go back to it often enough, but really good band.
I love the Kepi. Hey Kepi, how's it going?
Hey.
I'm doing fine. He still plays it.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
And
and my last song that I have under my best category, is like the weirdest band on the whole thing. It's that Spaz track.
Oh yeah.
A prayer for the complete and utter eradication of all generic pop punk. And like, if you told me there was like, oh, there's like this comp and it's all power violence bands doing 30-second songs, I'd be like, that's all power violence bands. What are you talking about?
It's kind of long. It's kind of long for a Spaz song, right?
Yeah, it really is.
That song actually, I think that is one of the tracks that was on a previous album.
Was it?
Because I remember I got into them a couple of years ago because my brother-in-law had a band called Take One for the Team that was kind of the first time I ever heard a grind band, but they were like kind of like a pop grind. It's hard to explain, but it took a while before I realized that they were basically aping Spaz. So I went back and listened to Spaz. I'm like, okay, I get it now. And then I think that track came up and I was like, why do I know this?
Yeah.
Why would I have ever heard this before? And I think it was a pre-existing one, but it's so fun.
I love that like you hear a song and you're like, I know this song and I've never listened to this band before, but they had one thing that showed up somewhere.
It's like when you hear a sample in a song that you've heard the song for years and then you watch the movie that it was in. Like there's a Lagwagon track. I think it's on Let's Talk About Feelings. At the end of one of the songs, like, Barry, can you play an A for Steve? And then Steve quits the band. And it was years later that I saw the movie Welcome to the Dollhouse. And it was like, why do I know this? Why do I know this? I know exactly what's going to happen in the scene. Steve's going to quit the band. And then it clicked. It's like, oh, yeah. Love it when that.
Any more tracks worth mentioning?
I love the name of that white. Well, okay. First of all, sequencing.
Oh,
note.
yeah.
I love that they put black flag, white flag, and anti-flag.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So funny. I love that white flag song title. The song itself was okay, but I love that
the title.
It's Rage Against the Machine or Capitalist Ponies.
Oh yeah.
What was up with that Dickies song, Howdy Doody in the Woodshed? What did that?
Oh, yeah.
Sounded like something.
I don't know. It's weird. That one. That's another one that always weirded me out because of the vibrato in his voice. Something about it, just like Blatty, just makes me feel weird inside. So that song always put me off.
We should tour Sick of It All and we can ask them. So that song you wrote, can you tell me more?
Blatty.
Make me feel weird.
Go on. I Googled it last night. I'm like, Blatty. What does that mean? And all I was getting was William Peter Blatty, the guy who wrote The Exorcist, but couldn't figure out how that relates to a human egg. But whatever. I think I should probably just drop that.
Yeah, it's probably some like New York slang that you're just like, oh no.
Yeah. I liked it better when I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, there's.
I was trying to think of. Oh yeah, that a lot of these hardcore bands. Like it took me a long time before I got into hardcore. So like 16-year-old Chris, who's getting into this by way of Blink-182. A lot of those hardcore bands were just like, no, please, you're scaring me. Yeah. I like
just
a little bit scary in my punk rock, but that's too much scary in my punk rock.
There's some of these bands too. I'm like, who is Men O' Steel? Or
I think were they a Montreal? I think they were a Montreal band. Or am I thinking of the right one? Men O' Steel. There's other ones like there's the band Spread. Yeah. This Japanese band that for years I was trying to figure out anything about them. It's like one of those ungoogleable band names. And I finally figured out last year. I think I tweeted about them and because suddenly we have friends on the internet who can help me out with things. And someone pointed me in the right direction, and they're still a band. I think they just released a record in the last couple of years or something. So they still exist, but outside of that track, I had never heard of them, and then I had to dig. There's not even in the booklet. There was nothing to go on. And there's a lot of those bands on here.
There's a couple Japanese bands on here. There's where do they call it? Where do they go? High Standard.
High Standard. There's a band called Nicotine towards the end.
Yeah.
Who I have another soft spot for because not a great band, but a very enthusiastic band. They toured at least Canada a lot. I mean, I think I saw them twice back in the early 2000s, and they were just always so happy to be there. And then when they came back the next time and I had bought their CD the first time, so I was like right up front singing along, they were just so happy, and like they took Polaroids with me, and I think I've still got them somewhere. It was just like super nice guys. Not a great band, but one that kind of has a special place in my heart.
And I loved the last track, The Count by Wizzo.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of counting jokes. There's someone else that does.
Pennywise.
Did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Pennywise.
I was trying to think of bands that are missing from this one, like bands that at the time would have made sense to be on the comp but weren't there. The first one that came to mind was Propaganda, but then 1999, Chris Hanna, I can't see him being asked, hey, can you write a 30-second song for this comp of 100 bands? And him going like, yeah, that's something that I'm going to spend time to do. So it makes sense that they're not on there, I guess.
Imagine if like the Weaker Thans had done a track for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like the most wistful, like heartbreaking 30-second song on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Bring everything to a grinding. Yeah.
Depress the kids.
It would have been cool to get like, because I think Lawrence Arms put out a record that year, Guided Tour of Chicago. Would have been cool to hear from them. Would have been cool to hear from like the Donnas. I think they had just started.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Because in general, this is a very dude heavy compilation. Like out of 101 tracks, I think I wouldn't Tilt, Aerobit, Lunatics. Yeah. I wouldn't say there's more than a dozen non-dude bands on here. So I mean that's 1999 Fat Wreck for you.
Yeah. The Lunatic song wasn't great, but it was nice to hear by that point, because there was like a real long stretch.
Yeah. The Tilt song too, I never really liked, and recently I went and started listening to Tilt. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty solid band. Not a great band, but pretty good band. And their track on here is not very, it's not catchy. So I completely disregarded them on the basis of those 30 seconds for decades.
I found myself enjoying that Body Jar song, and is Body Jar a good band?
It's a middle of the road punk band. They have good songs, but they don't have great albums. This type of band.
I was distracted, still thinking about the H2O song that was for it.
Oh yeah, I think I can't remember. That was definitely on my crap list. That's a bad song. That's a bad track. Not funny.
There's Brett Gurvitz on that track, so I cannot not great list. The fact that every battle region, like everything they do is great.
That's the best part of the song, is him at the very end of it, though. Like just
that's which probably is also an inside joke where poor guy can sing. Like his covers of Madonna was like a good idea.
You know who's missing is Hot Water Music.
Yeah.
They'd already done a couple albums.
99.
Yeah.
But the thing we were talking about, like we're saying, like everything like this by niche, but at the time, like the no ID band were not necessarily hanging out with a fat band, and was kind of the little scenes that were like close. It kind of changed when all these bands get bigger, and like they need the other bigger band to get even more big, and they start being friends. But yeah, at the time that would be like kind of Less Than Jake is on the air.
Yeah, and that's nice because there's a little Gainesville reference in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like just trying to see who else put out records that same year that would have fit. And
the Lillingtons.
Yeah, that could have worked.
That would have fit.
Yeah,
That's actually surprising that they weren't.
Yeah, I think they just put out Death by Television that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Aquabats put out a record that year. There's not that much ska on there, but
no, but it's Machetes, but it's more like self-served. They're on a label.
I think if bands who are not on it and would never have been on it because they're not punk rock, but also put out a record in 1999, who Chris happens to love.
Oh.
If Weird Al had done a 30-second track for short music for short people, that probably would have just blown my mind and continued to blow my mind.
Weirdly, no Me First in the Gimme Gimme songs. They were even on this, I guess their whole gimmick was as covers. You had to find a 30-second song to cover.
Yeah.
Is there any famous 30-second song? That would be like a T.
Yeah, it had to be a theme
theme
song.
song,
yeah.
Yeah.
Commercial.
I
or
feel
something.
Song.
they would have just had to cover a punk rock song, which kind of would have been against the
Yeah.
The theme, yeah.
the gimmick.
And again, 2021, Sonny Gimme Gimme is still touring
Yeah.
with the guy from Rocket from the Crypt, the guitar currently, and the drummer from the Damned.
What?
I don't know how.
That's just a payday, right? Like it's.
Oh yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Like they did a festival with Fat Mike. Fat Mike played one song, he left, and CJ Rahman arrived and took the bass and played. I was like, well done marketing.
I think
Well-
that pretty much. I mean, okay, and then as a final track review, the opener, Short Attention Span by Fizzy Bangers. I think it's the shortest one on the comp. Is pretty much a perfect opener.
Yeah.
8 seconds, one and done, sets the tone for the whole record. And it would have been on my favorite list, but I think it might be one of the most memorable just because it's probably one of the ones that I've heard the most because it's at the beginning of the record, and no matter where you end up on the record, you're going to have heard that one because it's the first. So, I don't know.
Side note: I hated Ketchup Soup just from a lyrical standpoint. Ugh.
Yeah. It's like Blatty.
Yeah, it made me uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think we've covered almost everything on here, and whatever we didn't talk about, I mean, Terror Group had a song on there.
Oh, I did like that track because that was my introduction to the immortal phrase "all cops are bastards." So that's another one that holds a special place just because that was the first time I heard that. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Don't they?
German band.
Don't they basically call the opening lines? It's like Mickey Mouse, Superman,
Yeah,
Fantastic Four, Dick Tracy, Spider-Man,
yeah,
Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, Batman. All cops are bastards.
yeah. I think the subtitle of it is ACAB, and then in brackets, all comic heroes are fascist pigs.
German humor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It worked.
I mean, they're not wrong.
yeah.
Well,
I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, I think that mostly sums it up.
I feel like anything we didn't mention is it's just too middle of the road to really.
That's kind of what I'm gleaning from my notes. Down by Law sounds kind of like the Jam. That was surprising. I don't know, just like
yeah, I
weird
can hear that.
observations.
Yeah.
But yeah. I know to circle back around. I know that the Avail song wasn't great. I did laugh when he says that sucks. Let's leave it at the end.
Yeah. I guess I'll give him that. As long as we're not pretending. Nobody's pretending here.
He
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah.
He knew what was happening.
Yeah.
He's just like, dump it.
But I think
Well-
that's what we said earlier. Like, it's too short. If you don't like it, you just forget about it and you move to the other one. And when it's great, you just play it twice and just like, I wish I had more. And then you go to listen to the albums thing they met. Yeah, it's a great photograph. What punk rock was.
Mhm.
Like, all the bands are pretty cool. Not a lot of women, kind of. But yeah, that's true. It's kind of
A little bit of transphobia.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also feels like kind of an end of an era too, because if you think about punk going forward, it's not this anymore.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I was even just looking at the releases in 1999 and what I was getting into. A lot of what came out in 99 did not end up being super important to me in the long run. Like that Blink-182 record, I can throw it on every once in a while, but that's a nostalgia listen. I mean, the Decline, yes, I will grudgingly admit, given my feelings regarding NoFX in the year 2022, that is an all-time classic. But for the most part, I don't have a whole lot of records still hanging out on my iPod from 99. A lot of it was 98, 2000 and on. And I, as much as I was into the whole skate punk Fat Records thing, the next era is the one that influenced me more, and then I still hold with me to this day, like Against Me, Dead to Me, and that kind of more melodic, I guess you'd call it org core Although I was never into the whole gruff, like hot water music kind of thing. But I think you know what I'm talking about when I say orgcore. Less emphasis on speed and cartoon drums, more on melody and catchiness and that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess in that respect, it's kind of a closing chapter, especially going back to the decline and how that was kind of like the big skate punk statement. Like that kind of did and said everything musically, lyrically, politically that needed to be said in 1999, and in that genre, nothing else has really risen to that level since then. So yeah, maybe that was kind of the end.
Yeah, because really, if you think about the next thing like this that's like culturally relevant, is the Rock Against Bush era stuff.
Yeah.
Which has also great compilation of crazy bands. There was no like the gimmick of like the short song, but like this compilation were pretty good, and like also in terms of like Foo Fighters, and like there was big bands on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well done, Fat Mike, at some point.
Well, I think we can wrap up here. We didn't get to talk much about your record, but that album is called, it's at the top of my page. I don't know why my thing is moving so slow. It's so blurry. I think you've got a filter on. Mid-Century Modern, released on Wiretap Records.
And Disconnect.
For Europe.
Yes, Disconnect. Yep, for European. Yep. Tell everybody where to get a hold of this record, because it's a really good record, and I think people need to hear it.
Thank you.
If you live in the United States of America, you can pick up a physical copy on vinyl through Wiretap. I think he's still got a few copies left. If you live in Canada, get it from us. I can't remember the website. I should probably know that.
It's talkshowhost.ca with an H and an L.
That's actually easy to remember. And then if you're in the UK or Europe, that's through Disconnect Records. And then, of course, obviously, anywhere on the internet that
Spotify, Bandcamp, there's the link everywhere.
Sure.
And the Bandcamp, we're not the only band with that name on Bandcamp. So the address is welovetalkshowhost.bandcamp.com, because we're lovable.
Debatable.
Yeah, I guess. Well, okay.
And then, of course, social media, Twitter, Instagram. You're on there too.
Yeah. I don't even know what's our handle. We're terrible.
Talk show. I think we're Talk Show Host Rocks on Instagram, and on Twitter, I think it's also Talk Show Host Rocks.
I don't even know. Yeah. I'm gonna.
I think there's a CA in your Twitter handle.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I think I was looking
at Talk Show Host CA. Okay. So
underscore CA.
The thing I said about,
we're not the only one.
Yeah. I'll put links to all that in the show notes too, so everybody can get a hold of it. But last thing we always ask our guests is to name or shout out a charity or nonprofit that they'd like to bring some attention to. Did either of you come up with one?
I've got two.
Okay. Your earbud died again.
And he's the one who knows that.
I'll be back online in approximately 7 seconds. Go. Connected. All right, am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. I always like to give my extra money to the Toronto Cat Rescue because I'm a big cat person, and I'm a big proponent of Adopt, Don't Shop. And then another one that's kind of less altruistic but also close to my heart is the American Genre Film Archive, which is a nonprofit based out of Austin, dedicated to preserving genre film, not just in America, but throughout the world, and they do a lot of good work rescuing weird old films from obscurity.
Woo.
Awesome.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a lot of fun. We went 2 hours.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Have fun editing that.
Yes.